since the revolution in 1979, Iran has gone through periods of great paranoia, and that this explosion will certainly pay into that sense of paranoia that the world is against it. It does believe that, I mentioned that these groups are internal groups, but it does believe that some of these groups get foreign backing, and sometimes in the past they have had foreign backing. So they feel themselves beleaguered as well as aggressive. It's a combined posture, if you like.
The October 7th attacks in Israel have led to cracks spreading across the Middle East. The war in Gaza against Hamas, attacks on the Red Sea by Houthi rebels, and threats of war against Israel from Hezbollah. Well, Hamas, the Houthis and Hezbollah are all supported by Iran, where 2 bombs killed nearly 100 people yesterday. Is there a risk of a war in the region that could dwarf even the horrors in Israel and Gaza? Richard Spencer is the Times correspondent, and he joins us now. Good morning.
Good morning.
I suppose for people just tuning in this morning, it looks like a very complex picture, but at the heart of a lot of this is Iran. Just explain to people at the moment the relationship between the UK, the US and Iran, where things are and where things potentially could go after what we've seen in the last couple of days.
Yeah, so Iran is important in the Middle East, the world at the moment, for 2 reasons, really, which are fundamental to its revolutionary ideology. This is the Islamic Shia regime that came to power under Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini in 1979. And 2 of its many beliefs. One is that Britain and America are sort of evil capitalist empires imposing their materialist, anti-religious civilization on the world and need to be curtailed. Another is that the state of Israel is is an imposition on the Middle East by foreign powers like Britain and America, and the state of Israel should be dismantled and handed over to the Palestinians or some form of non-Jewish control. So that obviously puts them at odds with the West in the Middle East and with a lot of other countries in the Middle East, and of course, particularly with Israel. To achieve this end, it supports militias across the region that are dedicated to the destruction of Israel and also the promotion of Shia Islam, which is the form of Islam pursued in Iran. This is what the West sees as a destabilizing influence. It creates this ring of hostile forces, often out of the control of the countries they're based in, like Hezbollah in Lebanon. It fosters the more militant wings of Palestinian resistance to Israel, like Hamas, which is a Sunni organization, but still backed by Iran. And so Iran provides missiles to these groups, provides training, provides other weapons, provides financing. And that's why it's at the heart of so many of these current wars in the Middle East and taking part in them. And of course, the other thing is it is a theocratic dictatorship at home, and that of course creates enemies at home. So it faces wars on 2 fronts that arise from its core ideology.
And that could account potentially for the attacks that we've seen inside Iran, which may not be related. It could be, some people are suggesting it could be an Islamic State group, for example, who've perpetrated those. Are those attacks important in this context, or are they something that sort of happen in Iran fairly regularly anyway?
Well, attacks like this do happen in Iran, though not on this scale. This is the biggest attack in Iran for, I think, 30 or 40 years in terms of scale of deaths. But yes, there have been explosions, attacks on religious sites, on shrines from militant groups, and particularly ISIS has attacked in Iran quite recently, according to its media arms. ISIS media arms have claimed responsibility for attacks. Recently, there was a shooting attack at a shrine in, I think it was October 2022, so that's not that long ago, in which 13 people were killed. There's also sort of separatist groups in Iran. There's a separatist group based on the Balochi area of eastern Iran, which is near the Pakistani border. So the Balochi sort of tribal area. That there have been groups in there which have carried out attacks on mosques, and likewise there have been groups in the Arab-speaking areas of Western Iran that have carried out attacks. So there are many possible culprits for this particular
Yeah.
bombing. There is a very sizable bombing.
And finally, Richard, I mean, it's a huge question, but I suppose not in, given we don't have hours, what's the response likely from Iran to this letter, which has been signed by 12 countries, including the US and the UK? It's directed at the Houthis in the Red Sea, but realistically, what it's talking to is what's happening inside Iran too. What do we expect the response to be?
So, the thing about Iran is that, these stories of who's to blame for what and how people respond, and it all depends where you start. I mean, what is true is that since the revolution in 1979, Iran has gone through periods of great paranoia, and that this explosion will certainly pay into that sense of paranoia that the world is against it. It does believe that, I mentioned that these groups are internal groups, but it does believe that some of these groups get foreign backing, and sometimes in the past they have had foreign backing. So they feel themselves beleaguered as well as aggressive. It's a combined posture, if you like. I don't think they they are used to having pressure from the outside world. A lot of these a lot of the public messaging around Iran from the West is less geared towards changing Iranian behavior, changing its attitudes, than it is to gaining wider support for the very hostile posture of the West towards Iran, saying to other countries, look, you should not be sympathetic to Iran just because it's resisting, Western power and Western capitalism and all this. You should actually think, these are ships. These are the oil tankers that are feeding the entire world economy. That's keeping the entire world economy going, and this is something that concerns all of us.